Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Throne of Steel 2 episode number 8 based on novel. So let's start. The sincerity of the Cavaliers is the class with the most advantages in this assessment. The whole class took the initiative to express their cooperation with Magic class, and the conditions are extremely favorable, and Magic class has no reason not to. Alliance is completed in an instant. As a teacher, Sayu looked at the two brothers Long Dangdang and Long Kongkong in front of the podium and couldn't help feeling strange. Is this a genius? The alliance this time undoubtedly gave the Long family brothers, who are monitors, a higher prestige, and the next step is to look at the assessment. The assessment was hasty for the whole first the eyes of many classes, especially the head teachers of the legal class. This is simply, can a group of children who have learned nothing at all be tested for? However, they are also powerless to resist the decision of the new grade leader. The teacher is not allowed to influence the assessment in any way, and everything is completely up to the students. Early in the morning on the weekend, all the first-year students gathered in the large playground of Temple College. At the front of the playground, behind Nei's hands, his slovenly image improved slightly, and he waved his hand, "Let's go." After leaving the academy, he left Soaring Dragon all the way. After 2 hours, the team of 900 people was pulled into the field. When everyone was ordered to stop, there was a hilly area in front of them, and the vegetation was lush on the hills. The terrain was very complicated, and it was best described as a forest. Long Dangdang and Long Kongkong come out. Nae said expressionlessly from the front. Long Dangdang and Long Kongkong walked out of the first class of magic and first class of knights respectively. Based on the particularity of the points of your own badges, you are allowed to set off 15 minutes earlier. The next assessment will be conducted in this forest area. The teachers will control the range, and must turn back when reaching the edge of the range, and must not leave the assessment range. The assessment will end tomorrow evening. During this process, the scope of the assessment will gradually shrink. Students who have obtained more than 5 points can voluntarily withdraw from the assessment. Those who do not have enough points must stay in the assessment area to strive for points. You can start now. After a quarter of an hour, all other classes will leave. Now you can distance yourself from each other and enter the assessment area as soon as the time is up. As for the specific requirements of the assessment, Long Dangdang and Long Kongkong only knew it in front of them. The two brothers looked at each other and ran towards the forest area ahead without saying much. Long Dangdang looked at the students in magic class and raised his finger to the air. Soon, the two climbed the first hill and disappeared. "Slow down, you slow down. Doesn't it depend on your spiritual power?" Soon, Long Kongkong yelled. From the point of view of spiritual power, even if Long Kongkong added the external spiritual power and the recent improvement of Yuan Vortex spiritual stove, he was still far from 100 points of spiritual power, and naturally he was much worse than Long Dangdang. Long Dangdang slowed down. While looking around at the terrain, he said to Long Kongkong, "What did old goat teach you recently?" Long Kongkong rolled his eyes and said, "I'll sue him later, saying that you called him Go Lao." Sliding step, blocking, and inch strength. These are the 3 types. Blocking and inch strength can be regarded as beginners for me. Stepping is absolutely perfect. As he spoke, he exerted a little force on his feet, and he had gone 4 or 5 meters in one sliding step, and even changed direction when he encountered a raised stone, which was indeed a bit like flowing water. "Where are your 2 teachers? What did they teach you?" The corner of Long Dangdang's mouth twitched. "Let's change later, let you try?" While talking, he raised his right hand, and a faint blue light condensed in his palm. It lasted for about 3 seconds, and with a flick of his wrist, a wind blade flew out, and a branch of a big tree beside him immediately fell. It came down and hit the ground, scaring Long Kongkong. "You can cast magic? So fast?" Long Kongkong looked at his brother in surprise. "Well, the wind blade is fine. It needs some time to recharge." Xi Qianwu taught him quickly, but after all, it only took a few days. Even if it is the talent of the son of the wind element, he can barely master the wind. His wind blade is obviously much stronger than ordinary novice magicians. After accumulating power, he released the wind blade again, cutting the thick branches that fell on the ground, and Long Dangdang took out 2 ropes from his arms. The thick branch was cut into 3 wooden sticks about meters long by him, and he held it in his hand and waved it, which was quite of them was given to Long Kongkong, and he picked up 2. "What is the rope for?" Long Kongkong asked. Long Dangdang said, "When climbing a tree, tie the stick to your body." No weapons were allowed in the assessment, but it didn't say that they couldn't use local materials to make 3 sticks of their current weapons. While speaking, he handed the wooden stick in his hand to Long Kong Kong first, then jumped up suddenly, grabbed the branch of a big tree next to him, swung upwards, and climbed up in 2 or 3 strokes. Long Kong Kong was shocked. He only felt that Long Dang Dang was as light as a swallow, and he seemed to be a different person. The physique of the son of the wind element makes Long Dang Dang always surrounded by the power of the wind element, and the lightness of the body is the most basic characteristic. The rope hung down from the tree. Long Dang Dang pulled his younger brother up the tree, and the two hid in the canopy. Calculating the time, a quarter of an hour is almost here. Long Dang Dang was not idle, sitting on the crown of the tree, accumulating power, releasing the wind blade, recharging, and releasing the wind. The thick branches on the big many branches fell to the ground. Long Kong Kong said, "What are you doing? How can we hide when the tree is bald?" Long Dang Dang said indifferently, "Do we need to hide? Don't forget, brother is a quasi-knight. Besides me, who in the whole grade can have a total spiritual power of more than besides? Won't we join everyone soon? I'm going to get some weapons for your classmates first. It won't be useful for tomorrow, so let's finish the assessment today." While talking, he condensed another wind blade, and then released it towards the blue light. Rose a full 30 meters before gradually dissipating in the air. It didn't take long. In the distance, in the direction they came from before, a ball of golden light bloomed in the sky. Although it was daytime, they could still be seen. This is the contact method arranged by Long Dang Dang before. He is telling the magic class where he is. The students from the magic class and the night class will rush over to join them as soon as they meet. In a quarter of an hour, they didn't go too deep, and the time was not long, and 58 students from the 2 classes gathered together. Seeing them coming, Long Dang Dang brought Long Kong Kong back to the ground. "Turn the branches into sticks that suit you, 1 for each person. The same goes for the magic class," Long Dang Dang said loudly. The students in the 2 classes couldn't recognize which one was Long Dang Dang and which one was Long Kong Kong. After hearing him speak, they all regarded him as the monitor of their own class by Long Dang Dang's wind blade. Soon the branches of several big trees around them became weapons in their hands. In the current situation where the students don't have too many skills, there is absolutely a big difference between having weapons in their hands and not having weapons. Long Kong Kong asked Shifeng, "Did you see any class in the melee department near here?" Shifeng said, "I seem to see that the second squad of soldiers is also coming this way, in that direction." While speaking, he pointed in one direction. Long Kong Kong looked at Long Dang Dang and said, "Let's go, let's get those close combat ones first, and we'll talk after we rob them." Everyone now has wooden sticks in their hands, and even the magician is full of the leadership of Long Dang Dang and Long Kong Kong. They set off immediately while taking advantage of their abundant energy. Soon, they saw a group of people walking towards the depths of the forest not far ahead. Long Kong Kong shouted, "People in front, stop! The young master is here." Long Dang Dang waved his hand from behind, and the students of magic class and night class immediately squatted down on the spot. The students of the second class of warriors who were walking ahead heard someone shouting, turned their heads immediately, and saw Long Kong Kong holding a wooden stick at a glance. "Long Kong Kong, what is that? That's points." The view in the forest was not good, and Long Dang Dang and Long Kong Kong entered the forest alone before, so they naturally didn't expect any ambush. Just looking at each other, I heard a student from the second class of soldiers shout, "Fuck him, 100 points." The next moment, 30 students rushed towards Long Kong Kong screaming. Long Kong Kong waved the wooden stick in his hand, turned around and ran. Students of the second class of warriors ran down from a high place, very fast, and approached the momentum. The momentum is quite ferocious. But at this moment, tall figures suddenly jumped out, and it was too late for the students of the second class of warriors to break. The wooden stick smashed over with a fierce sound of piercing through the air. There were screams one after another, and in less than 3 minutes, all the students in the second class of soldiers were knocked to the ground. Well, just as miserable as the first class of knights, there are very few female students in the warrior class, at least not in the second class. Of them were beaten black and blue, and the badges on their bodies were naturally badges in hand. According to the rules, each badge is a point. There are a total of 98 students in the first grade, which is points, plus the 200 of Long Dang Dang and Long Kong Kong, which is only points. Those who can finally pass the assessment, 10 less than all, everyone needs 5 points. 30 badges were obtained in one go, and the students in Class Magic and Class Knights became very second squad of fighters who complained was left behind, and everyone went on the road again. At this time, each class has just entered the assessment area, and they are basically cautious, guarding against collisions with other classes. When the alliance between Class Magic and Class Cavaliers met the second class, they were not as lucky as the first time, and they were discovered by the other party time they met a class from the Assassin Academy. When they saw how many of them there were, they turned around and ran. Has to be said that the students in the Assassin class were fast enough, so they didn't catch up. They just caught a few students who were lagging behind and seized 5 more. The continuous running and chasing made everyone in the Magic class a little tired. After all, physical fitness is not their strong point. Long Kong Kong put his hands on his hips, turned his head to look at Long Dang Dang, and said, "What should we do now? This assessment area is quite large. If you want to get enough points, you need to meet talented people. If you keep looking like this, you will have enough physical strength. The academy, even food and drinking water are not distributed. This is to let us survive in the wild." Long Dang Dang said, "I expected this kind of situation. This assessment is actually a test of our survival in the wild and teamwork. I guess Mr. Yi didn't plan to have a few pass the assessment. Even more is to let everyone follow us." Long Kong Kong nodded and said, "It's that old man's insidious style. Brother, is there anyone in your class who can release fire magic? I have an idea." Long Dang's heart skipped a beat. "Aren't you going to set fire to the mountain?" Long Kong Kong smiled. "You still understand me. There are no villages and towns around this mountain forest, and the overall area is actually not too big. It is spring now, and the sky is dry. If we light a fire, we will find it is on fire. Students, we will definitely panic. As long as we walk along the edge of the fire zone, we will definitely meet them who were forced out by the fire. That will save a lot of trouble. With so many teachers in the academy watching, there will be no casualties. Don't forget, Go Leona is a 9th rank knight. He can stop the fire if it burns too much." Long Dang Dang narrowed his eyes slightly. "It's a way, but if he punishes you later, you have to be mentally prepared." Long Kong Kong smiled and said, "It's ready, don't worry." An hour later, the first assessment for the first-year freshmen of the Tinglong City branch of Temple College was terminated. Was no way, because 1/5 of the assessment area was already on fire, and the freshmen were even more. It continues, the entire deep forest may be lost. A piece of rain fell and extinguished the mountain until all the first-year students regroup at the starting, stared at the alliance of the first class of magic and the first class of knights who were still gathered together with an extremely ugly expression. Who set the fire?" Nae roared furiously. "Report to the teacher, it was Long Dang Dang who set the fire." Long Kong Kong strode out righteously. "He said it, this is a tactic." Long Dang Dang looked at his younger brother who had betrayed him, and put his arms around his shoulders. "Is this your preparation?" Long Kong Kong looked back at him with a smile, nodded proudly instead of ashamed, and said, "Yes." The old man said, "Your teacher is a reckless knight. I believe that with his safety-first style, he would not dare. What about you? Besides, this assessment was originally for him to plot against us, and we plot against him. What's wrong? Are you right?" "Dear brother, the first class of magic and the first class of knight seized a total of more than 260 badges, plus the 58 badges they carried, basically completed the assessment. 2 of their classes were completed. And when the badges were finally counted, Long Dang Dang and Long Kong Kong exchanged each other's badges in front of all the teachers, saying that they each got points, and asked the teachers to count them. Yes, this is a bug. Nae didn't stipulate before that the 2 brothers can't rob each 100 points, don't waste it. In the end, the 2 classes earned 210 points after all the students had completed. That can be exchanged for a lot of spiritual power. These exchanged spiritual power crystals, Long Kong Kong said in a high-profile manner, were all distributed to the girls in the first class of euphemistic name is, for the glory of the night. Of course, the boys in the first class of night still have the idea of happiness in their hearts. After this assessment, among other things, the good reputation of class knights, especially the good reputation of respecting and loving girls, is known to the whole. Few years later, the happiness problem of the first class of the knights is really the best solution in the same grade. When the first-year freshmen were completing the assessment and settlement, the 3 middle-aged people sat together silently. At this time, they all seemed very silent, and the tea placed in front of them was filled with a faint fragrance and heat. Reckless Knight took a sip from his teacup. "It's good to be brave." Go Chichi said angrily, "This is called audacity. If you dare to set fire to the mountain, aren't you afraid of accidents?" The listener of the wind said lightly, "They know we are here, and they are confident. These 2 children have abilities beyond their own age. One is calm, talented, and decisive, and the other has a strong ability to instigate and lead. Talent. They are all good. Of course, they all saw the performance of Long Dang Dang and Long Kong Kong. With the strength of these people, their mental strength was enough to sense everything that Long Kong Kong, fooling the whole class into forming an alliance which made a group of little boys scream with enthusiasm. They were just watching from the sidelines, just wanting to see how far these two disciples could do during the assessment process. Facts have proved that, in the assessment of 900 students, the real winners are only their two classes, and none of the other classes have succeeded in the. It wasn't for the college taking the initiative to suspend the assessment, they would definitely have gained more by setting fire to the mountain. NAE snorted, and said, Kong Kong knows what to say. If you really want to say ruthless, Dang Dang is ruthless. I guess he has already thought about setting fire to the mountain. What about the first grade children? After this scene, I immediately panicked and lost my way, and the class couldn't unite. Zi Qianwu smiled and said, a group of 10-year-old children, what do you expect them to do? In my opinion, this is already very good. Speaking of which, why did you accept Long Kong Kong as your disciple? Is the child's talent weaker? The corner of Nei's mouth twitched, and he looked up at a 45-degree angle. You don't understand. There's nothing I don't understand, it's just that I received it wrong. What I reported earlier was that Long Kong Kong's innate inner spiritual power was 87. Some people were eager to snatch people away, so they just threw out the master-apprentice contract. When they found something wrong, it was too late. Hai Ji Feng said calmly. Zi Qianwu is also a smart person, and immediately understood, ha ha ha, old dog. You have been a dog for a lifetime, and this is shooting yourself in the foot. Ha 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 ha. NAE said angrily, what a joke. Do you know what it means to be wise and foolish? You can read it in a few years. HMPH. My family's emptiness may not be in the right place. The corners of Hai Jifeng's mouth twitched disdainfully. Zi Qianwu said, speaking of it, it can be seen from this assessment that there is a big gap between Dang Dang and other students. This kid's talent is really great, and he will practice with me for a few days. He actually comprehended the true meaning of wind and became the son of the wind element. He has been able to communicate closely with the wind element. Before long, he will far surpass Tongji. Isn't this kind of learning environment a bit inappropriate? He should be allowed to go to the spiritual world in advance. Furnace Academy, right? Hai Jifeng frowned slightly, and said, no hurry. With the two of us here, what does it matter where he studies? It is still necessary to lay a good foundation for him. Spiritual Stove Academy has advantages in various aspects, but there are also many problems. If those old guys find a seedling with both high innate magical power and inner spiritual power, it's hard to guarantee that they won't make a move. Zi Qianwu frowned, that makes sense, let's deepen the relationship between us and him before going to the spiritual stove after a few years. Hai Jifeng nodded and said, just don't delay the spiritual stove selection ceremony in 5 years' time. Xiao Mang. There is something we want to talk about. NAE saw that the two guys ignored him and were just discussing about Long Dang Dang, so he said proactively. What's the matter? Although ranked 8th among the Holy Knights, the reckless knight Hai Jifeng was actually the youngest among the Holy Knights. Nei said, when the Knights Temple sent the spiritual stove over, it was Long Dang Dang who absorbed the holy spiritual stove. You should know this, but in fact, it was going to be empty at that time. The holy spiritual stove it must be compensated for our lack of one. As guardian knights, what is it like to have no holy guiding spiritual stove? Hai Jifeng raised his eyebrows slightly, and said with some doubts, you really want to train Long Kong Kong? His innate spiritual power is only around 10 points, you should know what this means. A look of grief and indignation flashed in NAE's eyes. Do you understand the master-student agreement? I can only have one disciple in my life, what can I do? At this time, even Hai Jifeng's eyes showed a touch of sympathy, and Zi Qianwu said from the side, even if it is our identity, the spiritual stove is not something that can be given casually. Otherwise, it will not be easy to deal with punishment from the temple. Hai Jifeng nodded and said, I'm afraid I won't be able to approve it. Nei gritted his teeth and said, then what if I let him reach the 4th level or above within 5 years? Hai Jifeng was stunned, a 15-year-old 4th level, that's okay. It's barely enough to qualify. At that time, I guess Dang Dang was only a 5th level. However, with such a low inborn spiritual power, it may be very difficult. NAE took a deep breath, with a resolute expression on his face. Don't worry about it. Anyway, if he reaches the 4th level by then, you should join me in recommending my family, Kong Kong, to the Spiritual Stove Academy, and promise to give him a holy spiritual stove. I chose the wrong person, but it was indeed me who came first, and now the two of you have taken advantage of it. Dang Dang himself is also a dual spiritual furnace. You must agree to me on this point. What's more, they still twin brothers. Ziqianwu was very happy, and said proudly, okay, for Dang Dang's sake, I will count in this matter. As long as Kong Kong can reach the 4th level, I will be given the place to go to the Spiritual Stove Academy. Hai Jifeng also nodded silently, I'll get you a holy spiritual stove. But there is a condition, you must teach Dang Dang the footwork and parry. Don't use anything else. Nae nodded and said, deal. Ziqianwu drank all the tea in his cup, got up and said, I'm going to find Dang Dang. After the assessment, he's going to continue his studies. After speaking, he had turned into a breeze and dissipated on the spot. Hai Jifeng stood up, glanced at that leaf, and said lightly, I actually don't suggest you waste time. You might as well work hard to improve your cultivation. After speaking, he also turned around and left. Watching the back of Hai Jifeng leaving, the grief and indignation in Nae's eyes gradually disappeared, replaced by a look of complacency. You know what a fart, there will be a day when you will be shocked. There are always innate geniuses and a congenital waste. Do you understand the wonderful feeling of chai cultivating into a super genius? After half an hour, Long Kong Kong looked at Yi beside him with some doubts, and said, Teacher, why did you bring me back again? Do you want me to see the traces left by the excellent performance in this assessment? Yes, Nae brought him back to the mountain forest where the previous assessment was. Kong Kong, do you like killing? Nae didn't answer his words, but asked instead. Of course not. It's okay, who likes to kill, isn't that something wrong? Long Kong Kong said carelessly. You set fire to the mountain, and thousands of big trees were burned, and countless vegetation were wiped out. Are plants life? Nae said indifferently. Long Kong Kong was taken aback, and murmured, plants don't feel pain, do they? Nae turned around and looked at him seriously. You are not a plant, how do you know that plants don't feel pain? While talking, a faint golden light began to rise from his body, and the golden light gradually became stronger. At this moment, the usually sloppy middle-aged man was full of sacred air. From the day I became a guardian knight, I swore to protect all life. They call me a dog knight, but it is because I value life first and safety first. Today the teacher wants to teach you a word, you have to keep it in mind. Don't do evil when it's too small, and don't do good when it's too small. The next moment, a brilliant golden light shone, covering the mountain that was burned by the fire. On the ground, all kinds of vegetation grow rapidly under the radiance of this brilliance, and the burnt black trees are also dead trees in spring, blooming with the breath of life again. Undoubtedly, this scene was extremely shocking in Long Kong Kong's eyes. The strong visual impact and the extremely powerful fluctuations of light elements made his heart tremble a little. Immediately afterwards, he saw behind that leaf, the huge seraph entire mountain forest was rendered golden by the brilliance of the archangel. Nae made a move towards him and Long Kong Kong's body flew over immediately, and the next moment, fiery light elements began to impact on his body. Long Kong Kong only felt his body trembling unconsciously, and a spirit furnace of Yuan vortex was running instantly, devouring a large number of these light elements. Repeat what I just said. Nae said in a deep voice. Long Kong Kong was stunned for a moment, but he still said, don't do good because it's small, and don't do evil because it's small. There was a faint smile on Nae's face, looking at the disciple in front of him whose personality was completely different from his own. His eyes were shining with dazzling. My disciple's talent is not enough, but with the Yuan Vortex spiritual stove and me as a dog knight, I just want to transform him into a genius with my own hands. Close your eyes and meditate. From this day on, in the next 5 weeks, they would cast Archangel's embrace for his only disciple, washing and infusing it with light, and tempering his body with the Yuan Vortex spiritual furnace. Half a year later, Long Dang Dang's magical spiritual power and innate internal spiritual power both broke through to a third-order knight and a third-order magician. A year later, Long Dang Dang comprehended the true meaning of the light element and once again possessed the physique of a child if there was a problem. He could only use one magic element to cast magic at the same time, but he couldn't cast wind and light magic elements at the same. Qianwu has studied this for a long time, but she has no clue. 2 years later, Long Dang Dang's internal spiritual power and magical spiritual power exceeded 12, and at the age of he broke into the fourth order. The problem of not being able to use multiple systems of magic at the same time still exists, and Ziqianwu tried her best to solve. Dang Dang began to try the fusion and transformation of innate inner spiritual power and magical spiritual power, so that his own spiritual power became only requires a long process, but it is also the only way he has to go through the integration of magic and martial arts. On this day, Long Kong Kong's total internal and external spiritual power exceeded, reaching the third level. Only Nae knows the value of innate spiritual power. It took a full year for Long Dang Dang to complete the fusion. The spiritual power no longer distinguishes between magical spiritual power and inner spiritual power. The spiritual power converges into one and only into a spiritual sea, which is common to magic and knights. The consumption and compression of the power fusion barely broke through 13 when he was years old. With their cultivation far surpassing that of Tongji, they also gradually left their own classes, and mainly practiced with their teachers. More than 4 years passed in a blink of an eye. Two teenagers who looked exactly the same but had different temperaments stood side by 14.5 years old. They are in the most important development period in a man's life. Their height has exceeded meters, and they are in the upper middle stage among their peers. Although their faces are still somewhat childish, they have obviously grown up, is changing from a teenager to a youth. Opposite them, 3 middle-aged people stood side by side. Si Qianwu was smiling, and his eyes fell on Long Dangdang. His eyes were full of Long Dangdang has never been able to solve the problem of not being able to cast multiple lines of magic at the same time. His perception and use of any single line of magic can be described as extraordinary talent. A 9th-level magic god like Si Qianwu, everyone thinks that Long Dangdang is impeccable in the use of single-line magic at his age. The reckless knight Hai Jifeng remained expressionless as always, as if everything had nothing to do with him. There was also a faint smile on Na Yi's face. More than 4 years had passed, and among the 3 9th-level powerhouses, he was the only one who looked a little older than his eyes seemed to become brighter, and his breath became more and more condensed. Si Qianwu said to Long Dangdang and Long Kongkong, "You have been studying with the 3 of us for more than 4 years. You also know that compared with other students in the college, you are indeed far behind in all aspects. Super Tongji, so this place is no longer suitable for you. In fact, it was not a good choice for you to stay here to practice from the beginning. It is because of the 3 of us that you are allowed to stay. Your future it should be advancing in a world that belongs to the same level. So, after you go back today, you can tell your parents that we are going to send you to the Spiritual Stove Academy to study, which will be a more suitable stage for you. I think your parents should also willing." Nei said, "Spiritual Stove Academy is an additional talent academy set up in the main academy of the Holy Temple Academy. The students who can enter this academy are trained according to the future high-level reserve talents of the major temples. There, every student is a genius, and the competition is also extremely fierce. The 3 of us also came out of Spiritual Stove Academy. It is a hall for cultivating truly strong people. The teachers there are even stronger than us, more powerful elders of the temple. There, you will receive more systematic training, improve your overall quality, and coordinate training between major professions. You will also have the opportunity to obtain equipment that suits you, and even a spiritual furnace. The reason at this time I want you to go to the Spiritual Stove Academy earlier, because soon, there will be the 5-year-old Spiritual Stove selection ceremony. Only the students of the Spiritual Stove Academy can participate in the ceremony, and they will have the opportunity to win the favor of the Spiritual Stove. Not to be missed. Every student of Spiritual Stove Academy has only one chance to participate." Long Dangdang and Long Kongkong looked at each other, and after more than 4 years of training with the 3 9th-level powerhouses, their understanding of the Spiritual Stove is no longer the same as before. Hai Jifeng said indifferently, "Dangdang will definitely have no problem entering the Spiritual Stove Academy. Although he has not yet broken through to the 5th level, at his age, the strength of the peak 4th level, the dual cultivation of magic and knights, is by no means inferior to any disciple of the Spiritual Stove Academy. But, Kong Kong, old Go, do you think he is ready? You haven't shown us his ability all these years, it's time to test it." Na Yi smiled lightly and said, "Just don't forget the promise you made to me back then." A look of surprise flashed in Si Qianwu's eyes. He has really reached the 4th level? Na Yi said, "Not yet, but our original agreement was 5 years. 5 years has not yet come." Si Qianwu frowned slightly, and said, "Brother Yi, you should know that some things cannot be forced, otherwise it may not be a good thing for the children." Na Yi waved his hand, as if he didn't want to say anything more, but said indifferently, "Practice is the only criterion for testing the truth. I don't think there is any need to test spiritual power. Don't you think that Dangdang can definitely become a student of the Spiritual Stove Academy? Then let the 2 brothers compete in front of us. Actual combat can prove everything." "What standard?" Hai Jifeng asked in a deep voice. A bright light flashed in Nei's eyes. "Dangdang won't be able to win Kong Kong within half an hour. Okay? Are you serious?" Si Qianwu and Hai Jifeng looked at Na Yi almost at the same time. The corners of Na Yi's mouth turned up. "Do you believe in miracles? If not, then today I will show you miracles." Hai Jifeng took a deep look at him, didn't say anything, but a look of shock flashed in his to Si Qianwu. He is more familiar with Na Yi. After all, they are close in rank, they are both holy knights, and Na Yi is older than the Dog Knight, is known for his timidity, but at the same time, he pays attention to safety first, but he is by no means lacking in confidence he displayed at this time surprised Hai Jifeng. Although he couldn't figure out where Nei's confidence came from, he knew how stable Nei's character was. How did Knight Go come from, steady as old? Si Qianwu said with a surprised face, "If it is true as you said, then I will never call you a Dog Knight again." Na Yi smiled slightly, "Facts speak louder than words. Dangdang, Kong Kong, I will give you 5 minutes to prepare. Next, you must go all out for your sparring. Dang dang, don't show mercy. Long Dang Dang looked at Long Kong Kong with some doubts. Indeed, in the past few years, they had never let him compete with Long Kong Kong, and he had to study with two teachers at the same time. Yet he is very clear about how much effort and hardship he has put, also understands his current strength very one knows what kind of talent is Kong Kong better than him, and with continuous practice and improvement, he also feels the importance of talent more and more. At the beginning of Kong Kong, the innate magical spiritual power and the innate internal spiritual power were 9, and Yuan Vortex Spirit Stove seems to be able to slowly improve his talent, but in just 4 years, and he who has not yet reached the 4th level, can he hold on for half an hour in the hands of himself at the peak of the 4th level? Is this really possible? The entry threshold for the 4th level is total spiritual power, and the threshold from the peak level of the 4th level to the 5th level is 2. Dang Dang's current total spiritual power has exceeded 1019, and he is not far from the 5th. Long Kong Kong is less than 500, the gap between the two sides is 500. Is already incredible for a talent like Long Kong Kong to reach it in 4 years. Feeling his brother's gaze, Long Kong Kong also turned up the corners of his mouth, which was very similar to Nei's expression, but it came out from his face, and for some reason, he seemed a little unworthy of beating. Let me time it. If it is true what Brother Yi said, there is no problem entering the Spirit Stove Academy empty-handed. What do you think, Brother Hai? Hai Jifen nodded, and said, I'm fine. When I go back to the headquarters of the temple, I will fetch the Holy Spiritual Stove. It's such a happy decision. Nae smiled slightly, and made a gesture of invitation to Zi Qianwu. With a wave of Zi Qianwu's hand, a vortex suddenly blew up on the ground. The vortex rose into the sky, rolled up sand and dust, and quickly condensed into an hourglass-like existence in the air. Dang Dang, Kong Kong, you all heard what we said just now. Kong Kong, this determines whether you can go to the Spiritual Stove Academy with your brother. But, Dang Dang, you must go all out. If we see that you have reservations, then the agreement is void. Do you all understand? Understood. Long Dang Dang was very surprised in his heart at this time. Although he had been meeting with Kong Kong frequently in the past few years, Kong Kong never made a move in front of him, and he seemed mysterious, and he himself was busy with also wanted to see what his younger brother had learned from Mr. Nae in the past few years. Nae stepped forward and pulled Long Kong Kong to the side. Kong Kong, I know that you don't really have any idea about going to the Spiritual Stove Academy, always have to look around. If you don't go to the top, how can you see more beauty? Well, there are so many beautiful women in the holy city. According to the federal regulations, 16 years old is considered an adult. Long Kong Kong blinked. Teacher, you encouraging me to fall in love earlier? I don't talk nonsense, don't insult your teacher's character. Well, it's been more than 4 years, the same sentence, safety first. While talking, he patted Long Kong Kong on the shoulder, his smile was restrained, but it was a little more gentle. Looking at the many wrinkles in the corners of Yi Yi's eyes, and his cloudy eyes, Long Kong Kong took a deep breath. Don't worry, old man, I won't let you lose. While talking, he has strode towards Long Dang Dang. Only he knows how much Nae has paid for him over the past 4 once a week. Archangel's Embrace is a 9th level skill that can only be used by holy knights. Every time it was carried out in a hidden place, his body was improved again and again, and the spirit furnace of Yuan Vortex was activated again, and saw with his own eyes that Nae had gradually aged over the past few years, and he once suggested not to continue, but Nae was always the same. Nae told him that once the master-student contract is signed, it is not father and son, but better than father and son, and the master-student is of the same make him stronger is Nae's only wish. Today, when Long Kong Kong looked at the other 2 9th-level powerhouses who hardly changed in appearance from more than 4 years ago, and then looked at Nae, something seemed to be boiling in his all. He was just a young man in his youth. The 2 brothers stood 30 meters away from each other. With a wave of Long Kong Kong's right hand, the space ring shone with light, and a shield had already fallen into his hand. Yes, there was only a shield, no is an ordinary knight shield. The reason why the Dog Knight is because he only has a shield but no purest Guardian Knight, or Shield Knight. Long Dang Dang didn't use his weapon, but looked in his brother's direction calmly. Zi Qianwu shouted loudly, start! Long Dang Dang snapped his fingers with his right hand, and with a snap, there was an explosion in the air, and a cyan wind blade flew out, without spells, without any forward swing, instantaneous. When the wind blade flew out, it was only about a foot long, and when it flew into the air, the surface of the wind blade burst out with increasingly stronger blue light, and a large number of wind elements condensed towards the wind blade, causing it to buzz in midair. The same time, Long Dang Dang's eyes turned green, and his whole body was slowly flying up from the ground. The knight has reached the 5th level, and if he does not use a mount, he can fly for a short. The 3rd level wind magician can already do this. Longsheng didn't dodge or hide behind the shield, but held the shield and rushed up against Longdangdang's wind blade. The wind blade humming in the air has tripled in size in an instant. When it was about to collide with Longsheng, the wind blade suddenly split and turned into 3. Spinning and drawing an arc, at the same time pocketing towards Longsheng's back from both sides. Longsheng still didn't use his shield to resist, but his feet slipped, almost at the moment when he slipped through the gap between the wind blade on the front and the wind blade on the 3 wind blades did not fly away, but chased from behind while circling, showing that the wind blades were completely under Longdangdang's control. Longsheng stomped his left foot on the ground suddenly. With a bang, his speed increased sharply, and he rushed straight in the direction of Longdangdang. Night skill, charge. The 3 wind blades at the back chased after him with an ear-piercing whistling sound. In the front, Longdangdang had already ejected 2 more wind blades, which also exploded in the air and turned into 3 of each. A total of 9 wind blades completed the encirclement of Longsheng. But at this time, Longsheng showed amazing dodging skills. He maintained a charging posture, as if gliding close to the ground. His body swayed continuously, and he was able to dodge the wind blade every time there was no time. Attack. It's not that he can't do it without a shield to block magic, but he deliberately doesn't do it. The gap in spiritual power between the 2 sides makes him take the initiative to save his spiritual power output. At this time, the distance between the 2 was getting closer. While controlling the wind blade, Longdangdang slid down and opened the distance. He also taught him how to slide, and he will do the muscles in his calf exerted strength, combined with his spiritual power. The speed of his body retreating was even faster than Longsheng's rushing speed. And at the same time as he retreated, the corners of Longsheng's mouth rose slightly, his forward momentum suddenly turned, and he went to the side, and he shuttled out of the 9 wind blades at once. He didn't want to defeat Longdangdang, but to persist in this battle for 10 minutes. Longdangdang narrowed his eyes slightly, and the 9 wind blades suddenly merged into 1 in the air, turning into a huge wind blade and slashing away. This time the speed was not fast, but Longsheng clearly felt that the wind element in the air suddenly became viscous, and the huge wind blade was completely locked on him. Auxiliary magic, mental lock. This video will end here.